Welcome to the latest edition of the Inside Line in IndyCar podcast presented by the Indy Star. That's a lot of words for a Tuesday morning where March is ending. This is March 31st, and what a March it was for IndyCar. Zion Brown, our Indy Star, IndyCar and Motorsports Insider, back from Sweet Home, Alabama, which was very sweet to Alex Palou and very not bitter. He didn't seem bitter, but not as sweet for Christian Lundgaard, who looked like he had a race that he certainly was going to compete for, if not go out and win. And one pit stop, one failure of a pit stop, kept him out of the top step of the podium. But he did finish second and ran very well. Zion, I was really impressed with Christian's thoughts and comments afterwards, at least his public comments. Um, you know, and I just think he saw the magnitude of the moment and was like, you know what, I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus. Like, yeah, we were great, but this stuff just happens, and you can't take that away from all the good that happened. And I thought that was a very mature response from Christian. But just what was kind of your thoughts, the reaction from it from around the paddock?
Yeah, it was a really interesting middle part of this race, right? The race begins, and with Alex Palou winning the pole on Saturday, you look at the race and it's like, okay, he's winning the entire race, right? Through the first 50 or so laps, it's like, okay, this is not even close. And then Lundgaard had the pace all day, but he had to start all the way from 10th. And so he couldn't really get all the way to the front like he had maybe he'd wanted had he qualified better. And then, you get to lap 65 when Palou takes his last pit stop, and the pit stop's fine and everything. He gets out of there. I don't know if they actually did make contact or not. Him and Mick Schumacher almost made contact as he's coming out of pit lane. Then he gets out of pit lane, and Dennis Hauger is it's the two of the three rookies, right? Dennis Hauger just blocking him because Dennis Hauger is still in the lead lap, so he doesn't have to get out of the way. And Hauger is just like, well, I'm in front of him, and why not just, stay in front for as long as possible? And then eventually Palou is able to pass him, but during that time, he loses multiple seconds against Lundgaard, who still had to pit himself for the last time. And so that moment of the race, that 2 or 3 minutes, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, we have a race now. Like, Christian Lundgaard is going to have a chance to win this race after he comes out of this last pit stop. And he waited a few more laps to pit, I think, because he knew that Palou was in so much traffic that was going to be his best time to gain ground. And then you go into that pit stop, and it takes almost 18 seconds. Whatever happened with that right rear tire, they couldn't get it on correctly, and it cost Lundgaard a chance to win this race. And like you said, he was frustrated, but he wasn't like, I think he was still happy that he got up to second, right? I think if you would ask him, today or even yesterday on Monday, what he was most upset about from the weekend, it probably would be the fact that he had to start 10th and that he didn't even make the Fast Six on Saturday. Because I think he feels like, not qualifying as highly was just as detrimental to his race as that pit stop, which is what everybody saw, right, is the pit stop. But on Saturday, he felt like he should have qualified better. So it was very interesting perspective to get from Lundgaard after all that went down. I talked to his strategist, Kyle Moyer, who was kind of had the same mindset. Kyle just said, hey, it happens, right? We win as a team, we lose as a team, and it's something that's going to happen. But, I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but this kind of enforces more why Alex Palou has won so much and has won 4 of the last 5 titles, just because that Chip Ganassi Racing team does not make these type of mistakes, right? Like we see basically all these other drivers who are in the top 5 or 6, whether it be them or their team, have made some kind of critical or crucial mistakes throughout a race this year. Maybe not Kirkwood. Actually, Kirkwood's worst mistakes came in the race he won. So it's funny enough, but we've seen their teams or the drivers make those mistakes, and Palou's team had their one mistake. They had one, which was, the accident with VK in Phoenix. But outside of that, it's been more of the same in that regard.
Yeah, thanks for stealing my transition.
My bad.
No, you're good. I think you made a lot of great points. And I just looked up Christian Lundgaard's age because, like, it was such an impressive response. He's only 24, so, like, I thought that was very mature. Just the way he handled that. And I think you put it great. Like we talk about this in sport all the time. Like, usually one moment is magnified over others as like the mistake, but like there are other avenues where you could have been better, right? Like mentioning qualifying. Like I think that's a great point. And yeah, as you said, Alex Palou, this is what has defined him is just this perfection of the craft. And it's not just the drive, it's all the work that goes into it before the week, before you arrive. And it's the reps and the rehearsals and the work of the pit crew who have been so good. Like they may not be the quickest necessarily, at least not at last year's pit stop challenge of 500 weekend, but they're among the quickest and they're usually mistake free. And so it really encapsulates what the whole Chip Ganassi Racing team for that number 10 car is just they are defined by the measure of which they can be perfect. And it wasn't a perfect race. It wasn't, as you mentioned, there was some dirty air he had to clear before he could get in front of the rookies at the back. But, he did everything he could from starting out front and managed the race really well. Like, it wasn't quite the runaway win that it was last year, but 13 seconds is still pretty stinking impressive. And so, Alex Palou, man, he did very well.
Yeah, no, I think it matters to point out like that exchange with Hauger, that moment where some drivers I think would have maybe ended up crashing trying to get around Dennis Hauger, right? Because it is a moment of urgency, right? You could feel it watching that moment. It's like if he can't get around Hauger at some point, or like at some point soon rather, then Lundgaard will probably run away with this race. And there's that balance of urgency and patience that in that moment Palou and the Ganassi team really handled so well. And he just waited until it was the right moment because he was clearly trying to pass for multiple turns. And it basically took a whole lap for it to happen, right? For multiple turns, he's trying to get by Hauger, and Hauger just was not letting him, which he's in his right to do, right? Below had a comment. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he was like, I don't know why they were doing that. Well, I do know why. It was something along that lines is how he put it. But he finally got around him safely. In that moment between getting past Hauger and what happened with Lundgaard and the Aaron McLaren team in the pit stop is what won Alex Palou the race.
Yeah. Graham Rahal right there with them on the podium. And he looked like he was going to get another second at Barber until Lundgaard passed him on lap 88 of 90. Man, what a drive from Rahal. Obviously, he's had great success at Barber. The veteran, man, he still knows how to drive, and he's letting people know about it too.
He sure is. Anytime you get to talk to Graham Rahal, there's going to be a hint of spice in whatever he says. And so he leads off the press conference kind of in his opening statement said it was good to quiet the BS. And so I don't even know if I had planned to ask him a question. And then he said that, and I was like, I get the mic. Like, I got to follow up on that. And I asked him, I was like, what do you mean by that? And he kind of he's like, I think you know what I mean. And then he does this thing that a lot of people will do in these press conferences where they act like they don't want to say much more. And then 2 seconds later, they continue on. And so he continues, and he's like, all these people on Twitter that talk about, oh, I never qualify well or this and that. And so, yeah, he called them dumbasses. Like he was fired up to be back on the podium for the first time since 2023. And, he's somebody who, is one of the more talked about drivers for better or for worse, right? And some people can't stand Graham Rahal. Some people love him. Of course, he's got the family lineage with his dad as well. So there's the whole thing behind that. But you could just tell he was very amped up to be on that podium. And, in comparison to his last few seasons, he's having a good year, especially, it's been 2 main races between Barber and Phoenix have been kind of the 2 races where he's shined in, but he's having a solid bounce back year compared to where he's been over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, we love a good spice. We need more spice in our life. The comments were just so funny because, yeah, he let the intrusive thoughts win, right? Like, yeah, you know what? I am going to go talk about this. I think that's fair. Like, I think not everybody, as you said, is going to react that way. Like Alex Palou is very stoic. I think we saw a lot about Christian Lundgaard's character where he, again, was just very mature in his response about a pretty high pressure moment that went awry. And I love that Graham is like, yeah, he's talking his smack, man. Like, yeah, I'm on the podium. What are you going to do about it? Right. And I think there has probably been some frustration from him over the past couple of seasons of just how they went. And so, he definitely feels very confident in himself. Like, I think that's one thing that I took away from this is like, you could tell that there was some frustration that he's had, and you could see that he's breeding confidence from these strong races, which I think is great to see. A couple of other drivers who struggled down in Alabama, Will Power and Scott McLaughlin, both with some crashes that kind of set their weekends behind. And I remember Will, especially in the lead up to the race, they were reporting that he just wanted to finish close to 10th. Like, he would have considered that a success after his crash. And then he ended up, let me pull it up. He ended up 12th, and McLaughlin ended up 16th. So not great weekends by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a place where McLaughlin, who has had great success, he won 2 of the previous now 6 races. And so, yeah, they kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball a little bit, but I don't know. I thought it was a decent recovery for both, given the circumstances they were dealing with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'll start with Scott McLaughlin. This is now back-to-back races for him where it's been derailed on Saturday after he was the best and the fastest driver in the practice session on Friday in both Arlington and at Barber. And of course, Arlington, everybody was unknown about how that would look, but Barber, we know basically that Scott McLaughlin and Alex Palou are the best 2 drivers at this track over the last however many years. And so we come into this knowing that. I picked him to win. And then the Saturday morning, the practice session, he just on turn 5 just goes through the catch fence. Looks very, very scary. It was a testament to those cars and the overall IndyCar safety team that he was completely fine afterwards. But he did have to go to a backup car, same engine, but backup car. And, that just derailed the weekend and, didn't qualify as high as you probably would have predicted. He qualified going into the weekend and then finishing 16th. So Scott McLaughlin, who I feel like the car-wise, the car has been probably one of the 5, maybe even one of the 3 best cars on track throughout this season, right? I think you can maybe even group them in with Palou and Kirkwood as the 3 best cars so far this season. But those 2 mistakes that he has made, one in qualifying in Arlington where he had to start from the very back because of it, and then in Barber didn't even get to qualify where he likely would have wanted to because he was using the backup car. Those have kind of now derailed his first portion of the season when he's 7th in the standings, but feels like he should be top 5, maybe even 3rd or 4th with him. And then Will Power, similar story where it's just like, man, he's coming off that high finally in Arlington, getting back to the podium in that race. And just this one, it wasn't his fault. It was a brake failure. It was just odd. He said he didn't even feel like any small issues with the brake before it happened. And then they just went out. His rear brakes just went out. And caused them to have to start this race from 23rd. So those 2 vets who have both won at Barber multiple times just couldn't start where they wanted to. As you said, I was impressed by Power specifically getting all the way up to 12th in this race, but very disappointing outcomes for those 2 guys because of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as you're talking about McLaughlin and just his like shortcomings of this season, like I remember him crashing on the parade lap of the 500, and it just kind of made me think, like, what a redemption story would it be if this comes like a full year cycle and then he goes out and wins the 500, right? Like, man, that would just exercise some of those demons that he's I'm not saying he's dealing with demons, but like some of those pitfalls, some of those crashes, it would just be weird, not weird, but it would just be like cool to see like that cycle broken of like all these little mistakes, like these things that are happening on the margins when you're right. It does seem like he has one of the best cars. And man, that would be, I don't know. It's just the thought that popped in my head. We're not even 2 months out. We're under 2 months out from the 500. I know Indy's gearing up for the Final Four here this weekend, and it'll quickly turn the page to the month of May. And so I don't know, just a thought I had. I never did go through the rundown of how this race ended up, but It was Alex Palou, Christian Lundgaard, Graham Rahal on the podium. And then right behind them, David Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood, Marcus Armstrong, 4th through 6th. Scott Dixon, 7th. Santino Ferrucci, 8. Marcus Ericsson, 9. Joseph Newgard in 10. Alexander Rossi, 11, since we mentioned Power was in 12th. And so then you had the rookies who all struggled a little bit. Kyle Collette was 21st, Dennis Hauger 23rd, and Mick Schumacher 24th. And 4 races in, the rookies are not separating themselves from one another, really. Just, I guess, some quick thoughts on kind of your observations from them and how they're kind of getting acclimated to the series.
Yeah, I think this is the first race that none of them finished at least top 15, right? Like you said, they're all in the 20s of this race. I don't know. Being a rookie's hard, right? Like, I get the sense talking to all 3 of these guys, and they're just like, man, this is, I mean, and especially when you think about Mick, who is racing on all these courses for the first time, whereas, of course, Dennis and Kyle were in Indy next last season. But being a rookie is hard. I expected Mick to actually have a decent race going into the weekend just because it's a road course, more of what he's used to. And I just felt like it kind of fit him. And we saw that at least one of the Rahal Letterman Lanigan cars was very good this weekend in Graham's car. But then the bottom of the field is Mick and Louis Foster, the other 2 cars. So those guys finishing 24th and 25th. So I'd say a weird overall weekend for that team where it's like a great celebration for Graham, but it's kind of like what happened with the other 2 cars. And then, yeah, like you said, it's just been odd as far as we haven't gotten a great moment, I would say, from many of the rookies since that first weekend when Dennis finished number 10 and he made it to that Fast 6 and was P3 on the pole. But since then, it's kind of been like we're just kind of waiting to see how it shakes out. I think the order that they're in right now in the standings, where it's Dennis first, Kyle second, and Mick third, is probably at the time most representative of how good they've been, right? I don't think that's misleading in any shape or fashion. So I'm curious to see just how each of them continues to, get better. I think Kyle of the 3 might be the best on ovals. So that'll be something to watch once we get to May. And then once we just get to that second part of the season where there are more ovals. But it's just been an odd couple of weeks, I would say, for sure, for these 3 rookies. And once again, being a rookie is very, very difficult.
Do you ever empathize with them? Like, yeah, I'm a rookie too.
Not in the same way. I don't. I guess my rookie shortcomings don't have numbers next to them in the way that theirs do. Right? Like nobody's looking at me like, man, you wrote the 23rd best story this week.
We could do that if you want.
I'm good.
Just so you can feel it a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, now I know what it's like. No, I agree. Like, it is fascinating to me that like Dennis, he finished 10th at St. Pete, but really I feel like the one big rookie moment was him qualifying 3rd.
Yeah.
And it's just been downhill from there. Like it just every time I feel like it's like, oh, this guy's involved in a crash or this guy had near contact or whatever. And it's like you definitely see like some of those rookie growing pains. I forget, was it Arlington that I think Kyle finished top 15?
Yes, yeah.
So like he obviously had a good moment, and that was something I wanted to make a point that we brought that up on the podcast recapping that race, just because it was like, okay, like that's pretty impressive. Like in the grand scheme of the race and series, it was kind of like I never really saw anybody mention it. Just because like it wasn't really important to the race, but I thought it was cool, like a cool moment for him, kind of almost a breakout moment. And obviously Mick is still waiting for his, and so we'll see, man. It's a long year. They're still learning. They've got 4 races under their belt and have let's see, quick math says 14 more to go. So
and I will point out that these last 2 races, from talking to drivers, have been the 2 most physical races of this year, is what the drivers have said. And so, for those who don't know, the physicality in an Indy car is a lot different than the physicality in a next car. And so I think that has made a difference, right? I think that's kind of why we've seen these last 2 races not be the best for these guys, except for, like you said, the Kyle the top 15 finish he had in Arlington. But I think that's part of the explanation as to why it's been this way. And so maybe we see over the next 2 or 3 races another uptick where they get back toward that top 15 range with 1 or 2 per race.
Yeah. And next up is Long Beach, right? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, which is always a fascinating race, always a great turnout. And Kyle Kirkwood, still the leader of the series going in. He's got a 2-point lead on Alex Palou. I think going into Barber, it was 8 drivers were within the top 50, and now we're at 6. However, there are 9 within 60 points of Kirkwood. So there's still quite a bit of parity in the series. Not just that, but 4 different teams represented in the top 4. You've got the 2 Hondas up front, and then you have 5 Chevys right behind it. 3 Penske's in the top 7, 2 Aero McLarens in the top 6. And yes, I did get one wrong. I picked the wrong papaya. So I am human after all. Pato Award, his first time not top 5 this year. And so I'll just run through this real quick. Kyle Kirkwood in first, Alex Palou 2 points back. Christian Lundgaard made a big jump. He's third, 35 points back. David Malukas, leader of the Penske's, 40 back. Joseph Newgarden, 43 back. Pato Awards in sixth. He's 50 back. Scott McLaughlin and Marcus Ericsson, each 57 back, and Marcus Armstrong 58 back. And then a little bit of a dip to Scott Dixon in 10th, who's 71 back. Graham Rahal moved up to 12th, 74 back. Will Powers behind him in 13th with 79 back. And yeah, Dennis Hauger, top rookie in 17th at 99 back. So we've got a series.
Yeah, it didn't really make any headlines, right? Because it's not a podium finish or definitely not a win. But I thought it was huge that Kyle Kirkwood finished 5th in this race. The best finish he's ever had at Barber. We talked about it last week, Aaron. Like, he had struggled quite a bit, like, for his standards at this track. And for him to get into that Fast Six, he and Graham Rahal, we haven't talked about the tire strategy. He and Graham Rahal saved their new pair of alternates for the race in hopes that they could kind of get up early in the race, and they sacrificed and surrendered the best qualifying position in the Fast Six. And then we get to the track for the warm-up on Sunday morning, and every driver does their warm-up and whatnot. And it was like, the reds aren't going to be the best tires today. It's going to be the primaries, the blacks. And so even for those 2 guys, that kind of, in a way, derailed their race, where it was kind of like, you strategize on Saturday to, let's just save our last fresh pair of reds. And then you get to Sunday and it's like, this is a black race. It's not a red race. So for those 2 to still, they qualified in the Fast Six and to still be in the Fast Six was impressive in and of itself. But, very, I think a showing that Kyle Kirkwood is probably proud of, to just stay in that top 5. He had never finished higher than 10th in Barber before. So he stayed in that top 5, barely keep holding on to the points lead with the 2-point lead. But you mentioned it. Long Beach has kind of been his track. So I feel like he's got to be feeling good about himself going into that. And now you look at it and it's like, there's a real chance that heading into the Indy 500 that Kirkwood remains the points leader, right? And so that could be something to look for and something to say, okay, through 6 races, he has been the best driver. And then you mentioned Pato. I feel like I've seen just online a lot of like doom and gloom around Pato finishing 17th. Like, clearly not what you expect from Pato Award, or clearly, a disappointing showing for him. But you still look at it and you say, the guy's had 3 straight top 5 finishes to start the year. We know he's pretty good on ovals. Like, I don't know what the panic is for that. I guess you can look at it and say, this is a guy that we expect to be contending for the championship with Kirkwood and Palou. But there's still so much season to go that I think he can. I think having one finish, that's outside the top 15 isn't the end of the world when it comes to him. But it's certainly not what he expected or what he wanted to going into Barber either. So a lot to figure out with the Aero McLaren team, just to get, kind of all 3 of their cars, or at least those top 2 in Lundgaard and Pato Award on the right track, on the right trajectory over these next few races. But I think they're in a decent enough spot that it's not like panic time at all.
Welcome to sports, man. Like, when you're expected to be at the top of the mountain and consistently climbing and being there, nobody gives grace when you have, an off weekend. Like, we just don't allow, as sports fans, and mainly fandom is when I think about it. Like, they just don't. You hold people to such a standard, and when they fall short of it, the world is ending. And so I totally get it, but I think everybody has bad moments here and there. And so, probably just give him some grace. And as you said, we expect him to still be contending here. Like it's not like the season's over. So, and he was very strong in the first 3 races with 3 top 5. So, yeah, I think Pato's going to be fine. Interestingly enough, the schedule was so fast at the start. We now have 3 weeks until the next race, April 19th at Long Beach. And then, yeah, I'm curious to see. Obviously, it's going to be well attended. It always is. But I'm curious to see like how the TV audience draws with kind of a lull here. You've got the Final Four, the Masters. So understandably, some events that you're trying to maybe schedule around so you draw a better number. But in terms of the promotion of it, curious to see what the engagement is. And so I got nothing else. You got anything else to wrap up, Barber?
No, not to wrap up Barber. You mentioned it. Long Beach is next, and then we get to the end of the month. And there's testing at IMS. We're into it right around there. So an exciting few weeks coming up. I know these next few weeks for a lot of these teams is going to be about getting their affairs and orders heading into May. So I'm excited for it.
John Rothstein says we sleep in May because he does not recognize the Indy 500 or the IndyCar series. But here we do. We do not sleep. And so please like and subscribe to this podcast. Go to Zion's YouTube page, IndyStar TV, IndyCar. Subscribe there. He takes you off track behind the scenes with different driver interviews. He interviews different people and around the series and the paddock. And he also provides day of analysis of everything that happens, practice, qualifying, race day, and is doing a terrific job there. And you can find all our work on IndyStar.com. Please feel free to subscribe if you wish and desire to read Zion's words mainly. He's doing a terrific job. And yeah, this has been another edition of the Inside Line IndyCar podcast presented by IndyStar. And so long for just a while.